Sodium is a necessary ingredient in a healthy person's diet, but unfortunately for most people, if you're just eating a standard American diet, your intake of sodium, salt that is astronomical, 4, 5, 600 times the normal daily amount that your body requires. So how can you decrease that stuff? What are the steps that you can take to not overload yourself on sodium? Because hypertension is a risk, in consuming too much salt on a consistent basis is a problem, so you should be taking steps to mitigate that. Okay, you can't quite cut salt completely out of your diet. You should just be getting it from higher quality sources. That's all I'm saying. Eating overly salty foods and consuming too much salt can cause high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancers, many other diseases in the long run. Fortunately, some salt-removing foods can help reduce this burden on the body. It's not that salt isn't good or necessary for our health. People often recommend cutting salt or all overly salty foods from the diet, but in fact, it's important to have some salts in our diet. Yes, exactly. The main component of salt is sodium chloride, which consists of 40% of the sodium and 60% of the chlorine. Sodium is essential to the normal functioning of the human body. It maintains normal osmotic pressure and regulates the body pH value. Oh, good. Nerve transmission, muscle contraction, relaxation and maintain a heartbeat rhythm, a healthy heartbeat rhythm. Of course, salty taste, a human sweat and tears is related to sodium. Oh, sometimes it's so sweet. But people exercise vigorously. Sodium may be excreted in large quantities with sweat. Yeah, if you let a black t-shirt just after a long, strenuous bout of cardiovascular activity, if you just got a big old sweat pool on your back or whatever, you just leave your shirt up for a minute, you're going to see that white ring around. That's sodium. There you go. Running a deficit of sodium can cause cramps and other symptoms. Sodium is not replenished immediately if that doesn't happen. Therefore, the body needs to supplement with the appropriate amount of sodium every day to maintain its proper functioning. The current recommendation is 2,300 milligrams, which is less than 6 grams of salt. However, people often consume excessive amounts of salt because it's sneakily put in just about everything you consume. Okay. CDC's Division of Heart Health, Disease, and Stroke Prevention once published a large-scale study that followed 12,267 Americans for 15 years. The study discovered that those with the highest sodium intake had a 20% higher all-cause mortality rate than those with the lowest sodium intake. So it's important. So you should probably know how much salt you're taking in, of course. When you eat too much salt, there's one other nutrient that can help flush it out of your body. That is potassium. The best salt-removing foods are high potassium foods. Cynthia Chin pointed to a supplement. A large amount of potassium can help lower blood pressure and prevent cardiovascular disease. Potassium can also help the body excrete sodium to maintain a balance of sodium and potassium in the body and reduce the negative effects of high sodium intake. In a study published in the Journal of Cardiovascular Pharmacology, 23 patients with hypertension were divided into two groups and were given potassium tablets and placebo for 1 month without changing their dietary intake of sodium or potassium. As it turned out, the average blood pressure in the potassium supplementation group decreased by 4% compared to the placebo group. Researchers also gave 12 hypertensive patients with fixed sodium and potassium intake potassium tablets for 12 consecutive days. They then discovered that potassium supplementation resulted in immediate sodium excretion, with the average sodium excretion of 110 millimoles per patient. Cool. Interesting. Okay, so take potassium. That's all wonderful. Salt-removing foods with high potassium content, fruits, bananas, but if you eat potassium or you eat bananas for potassium, that's like going and consuming a Wonder Bread for your niacin intake. It's kind of stupid. Cantaloupe, yeah, I recommend those. Papayas, I don't know enough about them to give you one way or another. Kiwi, it's a very low glycemic fruit as well, so yeah, no, go for it. Citrus fruits, just be careful, a lot of fructose in those. And durans, not a big fan of their music. Vegetables, spinach, sweet potato, leaves, celery, interesting. Water spinaches, red amaranths, the ones that grow in the ground, not just have big fake tits and then just splash around in an indoor pool on Twitch for 12-year-olds. Oh, I'm sorry. And beets. Beets. Starchy vegetables, potatoes, yams, pumpkins, taros, okay, and sweet potatoes. Snacks and beverages, unflavored nuts, get these, and seeds, dark chocolate, coffee, and green tea. But again, just apply the same logic for dark chocolate as you would with bananas anyways. If you are eating chocolate for potassium, it's just a nice little benefit on top of a sweet treat. That kind of makes a little more sense. Excessive sodium linked to increased disease risk, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. Obviously, excess sodium is excreted by the kidneys. You put the kidneys into overdrive. That'll raise your blood pressure. Oh yes, resulting in a high intake of water to maintain osmotic pressure balance, which increases the total blood volume, causing blood pressure to rise and increase the burden on the heart. That makes sense. Chronic kidney disease. See what happened previously. Okay, overworking the kidneys burns them out, and then you just end up on dialysis like Osama bin Laden. Diabetes. Oh, of course. Evaluation of medical records and questionnaires from 13,000 adults in Tokyo, Japan showed that cumulative incidence of diabetes was significantly higher in the high calorie and high salt intake group compared to the high calorie and low salt intake group. In fact, the high salt diet has been found to be associated with metabolic disease such as obesity, insulin resistance, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Osteoporosis as well. High salt diet not only harmful to the heart and kidneys but also detrimental to your bones. A South Korean study discovered the urinary sodium excretion is negatively correlated with bone health, and that women are most likely to be affected by a high salt diet. Oh my gosh. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, but women most affected. You can't make this stuff up, kids. Study published by the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition on menopausal women. Well, of course they would find out that women are most affected if you're running a postmenopausal woman trial. Jeez. Showed that reduced urinary sodium excretion could reduce bone loss. Could or does, because those are very important discoveries to lay out for everyone. And stomach cancer, because of course everything, always cancer, it's always cancer. High sodium foods aren't always salty. Yeah, no, exactly. You've seen the list of vegetables and fruits and other gimmicks as well, and they have salt in them as well. So yeah, you don't always have to taste salt, okay? In order to be ingesting sodium, it can be layered in there as well. A survey conducted by the United States found that most of the salt people consume comes from commercially processed foods, not from salt added to the cooking at home. Common processed foods are high in sodium. Yeah, you know why that happens? You got ham, bacon, hot dog, sausages, smoked meats, meat, jerky, hot pot ingredients. Okay, pickled foods, noodles, canned foods, and chips. You know why that is? Because of store shelf life requirements. It's a popular preservative, ergo why things can stay on the shelf for as long as they do. They're loaded up with sodium. To avoid accidentally consuming processed foods with high sodium content, you can pay attention to the nutrition level on the packaging, and you'll be shocked to see how much sodium is actually in those things. In addition to processed foods, some freshly cooked foods in restaurants are also high in sodium, including the regular culprits: pizzas, tacos, marinated foods, barbecued meats, hot pots. What's this hot pots that you keep referring to? Risottos and certain soups. Yeah, no, exactly. And again, just take a look at canned soups for proof of concept on that one. But yeah, man, sodium is important. Excess sodium is not good for you, but that's just been common knowledge for a while. But then again, the common knowledge was always get rid of salt all the time, but then you don't realize that, oh my gosh, my muscles aren't firing properly and I'm very cramped all the time. Well, you need a little bit of sodium, but you need to offset that with potassium as well. Drinking ample amounts of water, and there you go. You're going to end up living a long and healthy life. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Coswell. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.